Great. First of all, big congratulations. And Denis, thanks for setting up Brussels AI. I think it's great to have a community here to boost also the AI ecosystem here in Belgium. So really looking forward to a very dynamic community, but also a very dynamic evening tonight. What I want to bring is basically a testimonial. A testimonial how AI is impacting ourselves, Google, impacting our products, impacting our services, but also impacting some of our marketing solutions, and as a result, impacting the marketeer. We'd also love to extend, very briefly, a bit the view towards Google and towards the marketing ecosystem, but also a broader industry perspective. There is also an additional objective besides bringing kind of testimonial. I would love to inspire you today as well to potentially write your own AI applications for the Google Assistant, which is a very low barrier type of thing to do. So more to come. Do you recognize this page? Nobody? This means that we have a very young audience, because this page is only 20 years old. So congratulations. So the first page of Google. And if you would ask any Googler, which that's the way how we name Google employees, Googlers, which were around 20 years ago at Google, and if you would ask them right now, what is the most impactful type of change you have noticed in the last 20 years? Well, only till 3 years ago, probably the answer would be the mobile. And if we would have this type of talk as a Googler speaking to an audience, probably we would have claimed that we were mobile first. And very correctly, because it was a big revolution. Google Search, our flagship product from 20 years ago, was typically providing blue links as a pointer towards relevant type of pages on the web. And the mobile screen literally forced us to redesign, rethink all of our products, including Google Search, because the consumer behavior of somebody with a smartphone in their hands is completely different compared to that desktop behavior. And so an ultimate example is Google Now, which tries to some extent, do predictive searches to give an answer before the question is asked. In this case, a lady which went shopping and wants to find her car, which she parked just a few hours backwards. And that is a very profound change. We had literally to reinvent a core product like search. People don't want to click anymore on blue links if you are on a smartphone. You want to have information quickly. And so we designed knowledge graphs so that right away, if you ask some questions to Google, that you don't see the links anymore, but that you see the information right away. Because that is what consumers want to have in their mobile journey. If you look for football results, probably you have this type of results of blue links. If you are at the Eiffel Tower, probably you don't want to take what is the tallness from the Eiffel Tower, and if you are just around it, and so on and so on. We are talking to our smartphones. We had to design our Google search application so that people can talk to Google. Mobile was completely changing the way how we designed products and services. And the but was still not finished when Sundar, our CEO, said, look, there is an even more impactful type of wave coming, and we need to lead it. And so since 2 years ago, we are not longer the mobile-first type of organization, but we try to position ourselves as an artificial intelligence-first type of company. And I hope I can share some examples why this is not a kind of big buzzword, but a kind of daily reality into our product engineering life. Machine learning, I don't think we need to go into the depth of machine learning, but basically you have typical ways to build intelligence into machines. The old way, or the traditional way, was to program the rules. We as human beings, we were coding to some extent, the intelligence into kind of computer program. If you want to recognize pictures, we have to code that probably if it's round and green, then it's an apple. Machine learning basically is not longer human beings doing the coding of the logic, but it's the algorithm itself who has to some extent a kind of self-learning type of capability so that the rules can be found out by the algorithm itself. I'm just presenting a kind of sample set, in this case pictures of fruit, and with labeling so that the algorithm has a kind of learning cycle. And it's damn good. Today, we have machine learning technologies, neural networks, for example, image recognition, very specifically designed for that type of task. And it's better than human interpretation. I'm pretty sure that it's a hard time for you to sometimes recognize, is this a kind of a muffin or a kind of chihuahua? It's done better today than human interpretation. We have specific neural networks for speech. We have specific neural networks for video recognition. So very specific algorithms, self-learning algorithms for certain tasks. Why do we see today kind of fast adoption? I was very impressed by the picture of the City.AI community across the globe. I'm very passionate, by the way, on this topic as well. 25 years ago, I did some civil engineering on artificial intelligence. Nobody did care about machine learning and artificial intelligence for a decade, and now it's really coming to life. And why is that? It's simply because of, on one hand, the huge increase of computer power, and of course, the availability of data. If you look towards Google, we have big data sets, we have quite some data assets, which makes us to some extent as a natural player into this domain. So, 2016, we wanted to become a kind of artificial intelligence first type of company, and we launched the Google Home, the Google Assistant on it as a kind of flagship product to literally illustrate that type of game. And I'll come back on the Google Home and the Assistant a bit later on. But basically, it is a kind of self-learning assistant in the living room, and it will become better and better based on the way how you react. If the assistant is giving you a kind of answer, and you need to re-ask the same question, probably the answer was not good enough. And so it can learn from that. But it's much more. Today, there is no product anymore at Google who has no AI embedded into it. And the AI is literally improving the quality of the product enormously. If you have Gmail or if you have the mail app on your smartphone, there is artificial intelligence embedded to make you more productive by just suggesting some replies to mails you just received. And even more than 20% of all emails today on the mobile phone in Gmail are leveraging to some extent suggestions by the machine, suggested replies. I hope there are some Gmail users here and that you can experience that productivity yourself. If you look towards Google Sheets, it's a little bit a counterpart of Microsoft Excel. I don't know if there are people here which are liking this type of tools, but the moment you are adding data into a kind of sheet, automatically the machine will do some suggestions in terms of what are the graphs which make your data and the insight from the data appealing for the audience you are going to make. And probably it will be a different graph if you typically are dealing with audiences in finance compared to audiences in sales, compared to audiences in manufacturing, etc. If you look towards Google Photos, our photo app, there is AI included because we need to integrate the pictures. And thanks to that, and thanks to the combination with speech, I can just ask, show me all the pictures of my daughter at the beach. And automatically the pictures will show up. If you look towards Google Lens, which is a new application, basically to make sure that you can talk with Google not longer by typing stuff in or by talking to Google, but by just sending pictures, there is artificial intelligence included. And so if you, for example, are going to an Airbnb and you have a Wi-Fi router, just take a picture and automatically your smartphone will be set up for the Wi-Fi connection. And so on, and so on, and so on. There is no product anymore which is not leveraging the power of artificial intelligence. And we see it as a kind of extreme competitive type of angle to make sure that our products remain best in class and the most convenient type of services to use. There is more. There is more. All the algorithms which we have built so far, we literally have open sourced it. I don't know if you know Linux and the history of Linux as a little bit the open source operating system. This is the open source operating system today on machine learning. It's TensorFlow. And basically TensorFlow is an open source type of application development type of library available to all of you for free. And it's used massively. It's used massively. It's incredible how many applications today are being developed by third parties in healthcare, by third parties in education, using TensorFlow. And also you can use today TensorFlow to build your AI type of application. Let me do a kind of cultural check here. Do you know who the painter is of the painting in the middle? Just to have a little bit of feel of how Belgian culture is living here. Van Gogh? Everybody's agreeing with Van Gogh? Right. Super audience. So we have a third-party application developer who is using TensorFlow to just upload paintings, pictures of paintings from Van Gogh. The machine learning will start to learn what are the specifics of a Van Gogh. And the application allows that you just upload a picture or even a video, and a kind of painting will sort out of the application. It's of course a kind of way to demonstrate the capabilities, but it goes in many, many, many directions. Today you have assistants. Well, you have assistants for doctors, where typically machine learning will try to integrate some of the RX type of pictures with a better accuracy, because the learning of the machine is probably not the 1,000 patients a doctor can see here. It is the hundreds of thousands of pictures and analyses which have been uploaded before. Transport in London, machine learning gets data of actual traffic information. It's a Belgian company who made this, M16. So if you have cars passing, typically, let's say, sensors on the street, they capture the actual type of situation on the roads. And there is a kind of 40 minutes forecast how the traffic will look like, so that potentially also police and other type of authorities can intervene to reduce to some extent the congestion. Bots, customer care, etc., etc. And this is today a platform which is out, which can be used for free, and which is used massively also by organizations in your industry. Let me focus now a little bit on the marketing side, because ultimately that's a bit the theme of today. And there are three marketing topics I would love to briefly bring to the table. This sounds familiar to you. Is this a bit the way how you are living?
No.
Was a smartphone the first thing you looked at this morning? For many people it is. Technology makes us online any moment of the day. And so there is a big kind of paradox today. As marketeers, and marketeers want to engage with consumers in order to convince them on the brand values, in order to make sure that they have promotions to perform a kind of sale. Marketeers have today an abundance of potential contacts with consumers. There are tremendous amount of contacts possible because we are on our mobile devices all the time. we look towards that screen more than 150 times a day. So there's an abundance of contexts we can leverage as marketeers to engage with consumers. But the paradox is that the consumer is putting a very high bar. We are no longer the consumers of 20 years ago. We are requiring that if somebody is engaging with us, it needs to be damn good, it needs to be damn relevant, engaging. And so we have lots of contacts, but potentially we need to make sure that if we are in contact, that we are doing a good job. And apparently, consumers say that only 1 on 3 experiences they have with a kind of brand were very relevant. I don't know, and just think maybe a few seconds. The last week, did you have any relevant experience with brand? With Google? Yeah. A few hands. I had hoped for 1/3 of the hands, because that's the stat. So it's damn hard. It's damn hard for companies to engage in a very relevant way with consumers. And it's damn hard because also your competition as a bank is no longer another bank. From an experience perspective, the competition is probably Uber. Because people are using that, they are delighted about the user experience, and it becomes an expectation of the way how you as a company are interacting with consumers. So it's completely agnostic from an industry. Consumers are not thinking, no, I'm at the bank and I'm only looking towards other banks. Of course not. They are looking towards the best experience they ever had and set that as a kind of expectation. And so it's, of course, very hard if the traditional way of looking towards consumers is based on this. Do you know this two gentlemen? Yeah? Do you know what they have in common? Age?
Gender.
Nationality? Gender? Anything else? I'm not sure. Writers. So, age, gender, probably are both Flemish, is a traditional way to look at social demographics. It's a traditional way how media and marketeers looked at their consumer profiles. And those two gentlemen are for media often the same, but of course they are very different. They have very different passions, they have very different interests, they have very different 100 things. But it's not visible today if the marketeer is only thinking in social demographics. And so we think that today, digital, and I come back on machine learning, is a little bit more like Waldorf or Wally or Charlie. You know Wally or Charlie? This means that you have kids, but you didn't know the first page of Google 20 years ago. There is a little contradiction here. But so Wally is literally a kind of character, and you need to look for your Wally amongst thousands of similar type of characters. But they're a little bit different. And so assume that there's a bank, and a bank is saying, look, one of my interested type of audiences I want to engage with is a Wally, 27 years old, doing that, etc., and looking for an apartment. That can be a very interesting audience for a bank. And you don't capture that in social demographics. You can capture that by capturing some salience, even in a GDPR type of safe world. If somebody is looking at YouTube each day for recipes, probably he's a foodie. If he's looking for playing guitar, probably he's in the market for playing guitar. Companies have their data. And so describing a Wally can be perfectly done in a digital way. By saying, look, I want to target an individual which is maybe interested in or has that type of passion, maybe he's in market for homes, etc. And so digital marketing is more as listening towards what's happening on the web and to provide the right message to the right person, the right Wally at the right moment. And that is only possible with AI, because it's simply impossible to continuously do that as a kind of human being. You need to automate that type of process. And let me show you very concretely some of the capabilities of our marketing solutions. So if you look towards the future of search, the future of Google in general, probably we will have three types of interactions with consumers. One is by typing, the left. One is by talking, voice search. And one is by taking pictures like Google Lens and just sending the picture to get your answer. This will be three interfaces we all probably will be accommodated to use. Just to have some stats, today in the US, more than half of the people using Google are doing this once a week based on a voice search. One out of five are using it continuously. So 20% of all our searches are based on voice queries. It's growing massively. And if we are getting today voice recognition in Dutch and French better than today, it will become the standard as well, the way how we are interacting in this market as well with our smartphone devices. And there is something very interesting. From an ads perspective, the way how Google search is working is based on an advertiser thinking, okay, what type of keywords would be interested for me to take as a kind of signal that somebody is in market for a certain product, and I want to show that ad towards that person. If I'm looking for a city trip Paris, probably it can be interesting for Thomas Cook or somebody else to have a kind of engagement with that consumer because he's expressing a kind of intent that he's in market for a city trip. But the query, if we type it, will be probably city trip Paris. But if we are starting to talk, it is a very rich, natural language. It will be a sentence which is, is there any availability to get to Paris on the Thalys on that date? And so you capture a much more richer type of query. And so you can judge, okay, this is very factual. It's already having a date. It's already Paris as a destination. So I need to be very factual in my response as a kind of advertiser, which would be probably badly hard if it would only be city trip Paris. You don't have that timing dimension. Now, the challenge, of course, is that if an advertiser today using AdWords, which is one of our marketing solutions, would have to think, okay, what are all the queries which somebody could ask if he could speak to Google? It's probably damn hard because there are thousands and thousands of variations. And so, to some extent, it's getting damn hard for advertisers to capitalize on that richness of human language to a Google search query. So we can automate it, and it's today just a fact. Today, the whole AdWords system is able to look towards the site of an advertiser, the Thomas Cooks of this world, and is able to say, look, these are the relevant type of phrases I can distillate from it. I know that Thomas Cook is primarily interested in making sure that there is a kind of sales conversion, so they are very interested in terms of cost per acquisition. Well, let me automate this whole by machine learning. And most of our advertisers are moving into that direction in order to capitalize the richness of what you can learn from a sentence talk to Google compared to a keyword type of point. Which of course is impacting also the ecosystem. There are some agencies present here. Agencies today need to think, okay, what are the keywords relevant for my client to advertise upon? This will get automated. And so there's much more time to spend on, okay, what are the real objectives of a certain campaign? It's much more relevant to get into a more consultative type of approach. And so the time spent today on campaign management will be reduced anytime soon. Last point on marketing I would love to bring today is the Google Assistant. And the Google Assistant is there to help consumers. That's the whole idea. I don't know if you have had already kind of experience with an assistant. So Google Assistant is available in English. And of course we are trying to get this assistant as well into the Belgian market, which means that it needs to work well for Dutch and French, which is something we are working upon. Traditionally, you have much more consumers in Anglo-Saxon markets, so it's easier for machine learning to get on board with that quality compared to smaller markets where, of course, the volume and also that the quality in learning for speech recognition is a little bit slowed down. Now the assistant today is literally there to help, and it's available across many devices. You have a home, which is the device we saw, which typically is something which is very home-oriented. It's put in the kitchen, it's put in the living room. Having one at home, my kids are asking all the time questions, but also playing the Spotify music, etc. So it's a very home-oriented type of device, but you also have Android or iPhone devices where the assistant is today available, again, English, soon French, Dutch, and so on, and so on, and so on, and Bluetooth devices, etc. So today, it's very easy to think as a brand, what are potential relevant questions consumers would ask regarding my territory. I've put just 3 examples there. You have City.AI, which is a pharma company, and they, for example, have some products which help people which are suffering from pollen, from allergies. And so they have developed an assistant type of conversation for people which want to ask, okay, what's the pollen index today? It's a very relevant type of domain they want to claim on the assistant, and they can do that. I will show you how you all can potentially make some conversations possible with your organization leveraging the assistant. In order to do that, the assistant makes a kind of difference between a first party and a third party integration brand. The most light version is that you can do whatever you want, but first the assistant needs to know that somebody wants to talk with you as a brand. So here, for example, at the left, City.AI, as a pharmaceutical company, is just advertising that they have an assistant type of application. They're using literally the logo of the assistant or the Google Home. And that the question is, hello, Google, talk to City.AI, and City.AI will guide me further into the pollen index type of situation of today. Same for KLM. Hey Google, talk to KLM, and I will have a kind of chat box in order to start planning my travel or doing a kind of check where my luggage would be in case it's lost, etc. You can just try it out. Hello Google, talk to KLM. They are also advertising this type of use case on the website. You have, hey Google, talk to, not City.AI, but to TP-Link. It's a whole assistant flow in order to set up your Wi-Fi route. So multiple use cases are today available. And so one of the things which can be very interesting to think as a kind of company which want to bring this type of assistance use cases to life is also to think what's the personality. Because the moment people are starting to talk with you, it is important that there is a kind of character, that there is a kind of personality. Is it a kind of touch of humor which you want to bring in? Is it a man? Is it a woman? Etc. etc. There is a kind of personality element which brands often don't have today. How to get started? And you can do it right now for the English type of version and be prepared then when the languages are coming to Belgium. It's simply by thinking on what is the persona, what would be kind of conversation, kind of copyright I would love to have in such a conversation, and what type of context parameters can be taken into account. And then you can go to Dialogflow and just literally choose a number of templates, put your copyrights, and be active. So it's simple, as simply as that for the light 3P type of integration. The first P integration is that, a little bit like the Spotify, etc., is if the assistant is no longer, hey, hello, Google, talk to Spotify, but hello, play me music, and you would have a subscription to Spotify, that's the first P integration. You don't need to have that extra talk to Proximus, talk to Telenet, talk to whoever. That can be skipped. And so, hope that thanks to a low barrier up to a little bit a higher barrier like TensorFlow, that machine learning can become a reality for all of you. And happy to discuss just further during breaks or whatever. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We still have a few minutes for questions for Anthony. Don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
Don't you want to know? Yes.
Abel? The microphone, it can go to there.
So I got a question for you. You are working for an American company, and I was a bit scared about the fact that there are a European summit in Amsterdam in October will gather only American company when it's about AI. So you know for sure the French guru of IA in France, Laurent Alexandre, and he mentions, if I quote him, he mentions always the delay the European company had towards AI. So my question to you, is there still a way to recover the delay for the European companies? And the question, is this kind of initiative one of them? Question to working from someone working for an American company.
I think it's a great question, and by the way, we are probably in an American company, but we don't feel American, in the sense that lots of the applications on the AI side are developed here in Europe. So the Google Assistant is developed in Zurich, 3,000 engineers working for Google. It's a European type of invention. GDPR is forcing us to build tools like Google My Account, etc. Now it's a European product being rolled out across the globe. So often it's more nuanced than American. But I share your concern. I really share your concern, and I think it's not purely American. I think that also the Chinese are absolutely frontrunners in terms of artificial intelligence. If you look what's happening there, both from a research perspective, top-of-notch research, up to scale type of companies like the Alibaba's of this world. So I think it's important that Europe, of course, sees the opportunity, and I think that, and I hope that it will be a mix of small, medium-sized companies which can tap into free tools like we have seen, because ultimately the innovation is not a platform like a TensorFlow, but it's really the application, and we see there big insurance companies doing automated claim recognition on pictures, up to a small SME doing great stuff for his application. So I hope that we capture as SMEs, which is typically a part of the European economy, the opportunity to work on platforms like TensorFlow or others. And I hope that today the European market leverages the research centers we have, the VIB, IE Lab, etc. is a very relevant type of organization, and especially this type of communities is a starting point. But we have to ramp up. I really think it's great that in France, for example, 2 billion euros will be invested into research. There is also on the European Commission side a kind of research fund being defined. Let's grab that opportunity, but we are lagging behind.
Any other questions? Yes, over there.
Okay, a little bit closer. Thank you.
For example, with all the data, I know what my customers want, when they want it, but it also feels a bit creepy. Like, for example, I place a 911 call. I'm probably willing to pay 10 times the amount of money to Uber to order a cab to the hospital. So it can also be really negative for me and a whole lot of people, because I don't want to pay 10 times more because all the data is telling me what it's worth for me. It's good for me as a company, not as a user. How can we control it? In a slight way.
Well, I think your question is a very hot question. How can we control it if within 2 days the GDPR regulation is coming into place, and GDPR to some extent is impacting as well what type of data sets can be used for training of machine learning algorithms, etc. You need to have consent. So I think that the control is something which today, especially in Europe, is a kind of hard-coded thing in the regulation. The GDPR, and we are very happy that with the GDPR, gives you as a consumer the position that you can at any moment in time request what the data is being kept by an organization, and you can say, look, I'm not agreeing anymore, I'm changing my mind. And so again, if you go towards Google My Account, it can be very scary in the sense that there's complete transparency. And you can see what your last 5 years search queries were, literally. It can be eye-opening, or it can be, oh, good, thanks, there's transparency, and I'm agreeing or not agreeing that thanks to machine learning, this query or my next query will be personalized. If you don't want that, you put it off. If you want it, you keep it on, or you put it on, etc. So I think that today, on the privacy side, which is partially your question, things are moving to the right direction. If you look towards can insurance companies, or taxi companies go to individualized type of pricing because they have the ultimately data to forecast already that I will be sick tomorrow, and so my insurance fee will be higher. I think there will be always a kind of auto-regulation. Insurances need to be solider. If not, it's not an insurance contract anymore. It's a kind of personalized type of service. So I'm a strong believer that if consumers don't buy it, it will be corrected. If you are scared and everybody is scared, it will be corrected. But I also believe that maybe you are scared and your neighbor not. If you love that Google, Facebook is keeping your location because it's very interesting that you can find all your pictures. Just referring to your location, give me all the pictures in California in Google Photos. But this means that we need to be able to capture your location. If not, that service is not possible. If you like that maybe, and maybe your neighbor is not liking it, well, he can put it off, you can put it on. So there's also kind of individual choice and privacy.
Okay, Anthony, thank you. Great applause for Anthony.